Captain Marcus Hale stood on the balcony of the great Zayari Palace, watching the alien city glow beneath the twin moons. Towers of silver and crystal reached for the stars, their surfaces catching the soft light and scattering it across the horizon like a sea of diamonds. The air carried a faint metallic taste, mixed with the perfume of strange flowers that bloomed in the gardens below. For many humans, this would have been a dream, an invitation to stand in the heart of the Zayari Empire, to meet their rulers, and to share a drink with nobles who shaped the galaxy's future. But for Marcus, it was a test he could not afford to fail. He adjusted the collar of his navy blue uniform and scanned the ballroom behind him. Hundreds of guests, Zayari nobles, alien envoys, and human officers, mingled beneath shimmering banners that displayed the sigil of the Zayari Queen. Tall alien guards, clad in armor that shimmered like polished obsidian, lined the walls. The music was strange and haunting, made by instruments that vibrated with tones both sharp and melodic. Marcus had attended many diplomatic gatherings before, but none felt like this. Tonight was different because tonight the Queen's daughter had noticed him. Princess Vera, tall and elegant with silver markings along her cheeks, stood near the center of the room. Her gown sparkled with tiny crystals that seemed alive, glowing faintly as if reflecting her every breath. Her eyes, deep violet and sharp, swept across the crowd until they found Marcus again. She smiled, a deliberate, knowing smile, and began to walk toward him. Marcus sighed quietly and turned back toward the balcony, pretending to study the skyline. He had avoided her twice already this evening. The first time had been when she offered him a glass of wine with a teasing remark. The second time had been when she invited him to sit beside her during the Queen's welcoming speech. Each time he had bowed respectfully and excused himself, careful not to give offense. But Vera was not someone easily ignored. "Captain Hale." Her voice came from behind him, smooth and melodic. "You seem to enjoy the view more than the company." Marcus turned, bowing slightly. "Your Highness, the city is beautiful. I did not wish to intrude upon your evening." Vera tilted her head, studying him. "Most visitors cannot wait to speak with me, yet you slip away like a shadow." Marcus hesitated. He chose his words carefully. "I mean no disrespect. I am simply not used to such attention." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile remained. "Perhaps I enjoy mysteries, Captain. And you, it seems, are one." Before Marcus could reply, a gentle chime echoed through the hall. A herald announced the arrival of Queen Solara, and all voices fell silent. The Queen entered with slow, regal steps, her robe trailing like liquid silver. Her presence filled the chamber, commanding respect without effort. Every guest bowed deeply, Marcus included. He had heard stories about her, wise, cunning, and impossibly old by human standards. The Queen's gaze swept across the hall, pausing briefly on Marcus before moving on. The evening continued with toasts and speeches. Human ambassadors praised the growing alliance, while Zayari nobles spoke of strength and unity. Marcus did his best to remain unnoticed, but it was impossible with the princess watching him. At one point she approached again, offering him a seat at her table. Marcus declined politely, excusing himself with the excuse of duty. Other humans noticed. Two officers whispered near the corner, their voices carrying just enough for Marcus to hear. "Is he blind?" one muttered. "That's the princess of the Zayari. A single smile from her could change his career forever." "Or end it," the other replied. "Refusing her isn't safe." Marcus ignored them, but the weight of their words pressed against his thoughts. Hours passed, and the gathering began to shift into smaller conversations. Marcus found himself near the edge of the grand garden, a place filled with glowing flowers and quiet fountains. He welcomed the silence, but it didn't last. The princess appeared again, stepping lightly across the garden path. Her crystal gown shimmered under the starlight. "You cannot hide here forever, Captain," she said, her tone half amused, half sharp. "Tell me, why do you avoid me?" Marcus bowed again. "Your Highness, I am honored by your interest, but what?" Her eyes shone with curiosity, and perhaps the faintest spark of irritation. "Do humans not speak plainly?" Before he could answer, a shadow fell across the garden. Guards stepped aside as Queen Solara herself entered, her presence quiet but overwhelming. The princess stiffened slightly, surprised to see her mother. The Queen's gaze settled on Marcus. "My daughter tells me you avoid her," she said, her voice calm yet edged with command. I am curious, Captain Hale, why? The garden fell silent. Even the fountains seemed to hush. Marcus's heart beat heavily in his chest. He knew the wrong words could end not only his career, but also humanity's fragile relationship with the Zayari Empire. He lowered his eyes respectfully, choosing silence. The Queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she turned to her daughter. Leave us. Vera hesitated, then obeyed, casting Marcus one last searching look before disappearing into the hall. When she was gone, the Queen spoke again. You are cautious, perhaps wise, but I will ask you once more, why do you avoid her? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. He thought of his past, of battles fought, of allies lost, of promises made. He remembered how easily trust could be broken when relationships were built on convenience rather than truth. At last, he met the Queen's gaze, though he said nothing. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, but instead of anger there was curiosity. She gave a faint, knowing smile. Very well, Captain. I shall wait for your answer. With that, she turned and left, her robe sweeping across the stone path like flowing water. Marcus stood alone in the garden, the weight of her words heavy on his shoulders. He knew this was only the beginning. The alliance between humanity and the Zayari was fragile. One wrong step could shatter it. And yet, he also knew he could not betray his own heart by giving the Queen or her daughter an answer that was false. He looked up at the twin moons again, their light washing over the city. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the storm of questions and challenges still to come, and he knew that the next time the Queen asked him why, he would have to speak. The morning after the grand gathering, Captain Marcus Hale stood on the balcony of the guest quarters assigned to him. The alien city stretched out before him in shades of silver and blue, still glowing faintly in the light of the rising twin suns. From here he could see the endless towers of the Zayari capital, their crystalline walls shining like ice. Ships glided in the skies above, moving with silent precision. It was beautiful, but Marcus found little comfort in the view. His mind was still trapped in the memory of the previous night. The Queen herself had asked him why he avoided her daughter. He had given her no answer, and yet she had not pressed further. Instead, she had left him with a promise. I shall wait for your answer. Marcus knew that silence would not protect him for long. Inside the chamber, his communicator buzzed. The human ambassador, Elias Grayson, appeared on the small screen. His voice carried both worry and irritation. Marcus, what exactly happened last night? Word spreads fast here. The Queen asked about you personally. Do you realize how dangerous that is? The whole court is talking about it. Marcus kept his expression calm. I avoided speaking carelessly. That is all. Grayson sighed, rubbing his forehead. The Zayari nobles see things differently. They think you insulted the princess by keeping your distance. Some believe you are hiding something. If the Queen doubts your loyalty to the alliance, this could cause real damage. I understand, Marcus said quietly. Good, Grayson replied, his tone softening. Still, you need to be careful. This alliance is too fragile. Humans can't afford to upset the Zayari. If the Queen summons you again, choose your words wisely. The screen faded, leaving Marcus alone once more. Later that day, Marcus was summoned to the royal library. 2 Zayari guards led him through long corridors filled with carvings of alien history. Wars fought, treaties signed, empires rising. The silence of the place pressed heavily against his thoughts. The library itself was vast, with shelves stretching into the shadows, filled with glowing data crystals instead of books. At the center stood Queen Solara, her tall form wrapped in robes of deep silver. She turned as Marcus entered, her expression calm yet unreadable. Captain Hale, she said, her voice echoing gently in the chamber, you did not answer me last night. My daughter wishes to know why you avoid her. And I too am curious, Marcus bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect. But some matters are not easy to explain in one breath. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. Then take more than one breath, speak. Marcus hesitated. He could not simply tell her the truth, not yet. To speak of human ideas of love, loyalty, and choice would sound strange, perhaps even foolish, to a queen who had ruled an empire for centuries. And yet he could not lie either. I respect your daughter, he said carefully, but I do not wish to treat her as others do. I cannot offer attention unless it is honest. The Queen studied him in silence. Her violet eyes were sharp, as if she could see the thoughts he tried to hide. At last she gave a faint smile. Honest, she repeated softly, a rare word in court. She moved toward the shelves, running her fingers lightly across the glowing crystals. Do you know what humans are called among my people? Marcus shook his head. The unshaped, she said, because you are still young, unpredictable, and not yet tested by centuries of survival. Some nobles believe you are too fragile to stand beside us. And yet, she turned, her eyes piercing. You speak of honesty as if it is a weapon. Marcus held her gaze. For us it is. The queen did not reply. Instead, she gestured for him to follow. Together they walked through the library, their footsteps echoing softly. Later in the great hall, Princess Vera sat among her advisors. She looked restless, tapping her fingers against the armrest of her chair. When she saw Marcus walking with her mother, her eyes lit up with curiosity. Mother, she said smoothly, did he finally give you an answer? The queen raised a hand, silencing her daughter. Patience, Vera. Answers worth hearing are not given in haste. The princess frowned but said nothing more. Her gaze, however, remained fixed on Marcus, sharp and searching. The following days brought whispers and rumors. Wherever Marcus walked, alien nobles glanced at him with suspicion or amusement. Some claimed he had insulted the princess. Others insisted the queen had taken a special interest in him. A few humans whispered in private, unsure whether Marcus was bold or foolish. Yet despite the pressure, Marcus continued his duties calmly. He attended diplomatic meetings, reviewed reports of joint fleet exercises, and spoke politely with those who approached him. But always, he felt the princess's eyes on him, filled with questions he had not answered. One evening, as he returned from a council session, Marcus found himself once more in the palace gardens. The twin moons were high, casting pale light across the glowing flowers. He thought he was alone until he heard soft footsteps behind him. Princess Vera appeared, her gown shimmering like liquid light. She walked with confidence, yet her expression was unusually serious. You still avoid me, she said quietly. Marcus bowed respectfully. Your Highness, do not give me another polite excuse, she interrupted, her tone sharper than before. I want to know the truth. No one has ever turned away from me. No one has ever refused my attention. Why do you? Marcus was silent. Vera stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Is it because I am Zayari? Because I'm not human? He shook his head. No, then why? For a long moment, Marcus stared at the glowing fountain nearby, its water sparkling under the moons. At last he spoke. Because for humans, affection is not a game. It is not given because of titles or because others expect it. It is something real and it cannot be forced. Vera blinked, stunned by the simplicity of his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For all her life, attention had been automatic, offered out of duty or ambition. Yet here stood a human who dared to resist all of that. Before she could reply, the sound of footsteps echoed across the garden once more. The queen entered, her presence commanding silence. She looked at Marcus, then at her daughter. Still no answer? Marcus bowed again. Not one you will accept easily. The queen's expression softened slightly, though her eyes still glimmered with curiosity. Then I shall wait. But remember, Captain, patience has limits, even for queens. With that, she turned and walked away, her daughter following reluctantly. Marcus remained alone in the garden, the weight of their expectations pressing heavily on his shoulders. He knew he had spoken only part of the truth. The day was coming when he would need to speak all of it, and when that day came, his words might change not only his own fate, but the fate of the fragile alliance between humanity and the Zayari Empire. The days passed slowly, each filled with meetings, speeches, and endless whispers in the halls of the Zayari Palace. Captain Marcus Hale felt the pressure growing heavier with every passing hour. The queen had not forgotten her question, and neither had her daughter. Everywhere Marcus went, eyes followed him, some curious, some suspicious, and some openly hostile. The human officers stationed at the palace avoided discussing the subject openly, but Marcus could feel their unease. For them, his silence was dangerous. If he offended the Zayari, the alliance could weaken and humanity could lose its most powerful ally. Yet for Marcus, honesty remained more important than politics. One evening, after another long meeting about trade routes and fleet cooperation, Marcus returned to the gardens. The air was cool beneath the twin moons, and the glowing flowers cast a soft light across the stone paths. He often came here to think, away from the crowded halls and sharp stares of the nobles. But this night, he was not alone. Princess Vera stood near the fountain, her gown sparkling like the water itself. She turned as Marcus approached, her expression calmer than before but still filled with determination. "You always return here," she said softly. "Why?" Marcus stopped a few steps away, bowing politely. "It is quiet. A place where thoughts can breathe." Vera tilted her head, studying him. "And are your thoughts about me, Captain?" Marcus did not answer immediately. He watched the fountain, the way its water caught the moonlight. Then slowly he said, "Yes." Her eyes brightened, though her voice stayed sharp. "Then why do you still refuse me?" Marcus lifted his gaze to meet hers. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a depth she had not seen before. "Because if I give you my attention, it must mean something. It cannot be empty. It cannot be a lie. I will not pretend to feel something I do not." For a moment, the princess was speechless. No one had ever dared to speak to her that way. Every word she had ever heard from suitors or diplomats had been filled with flattery, ambition, or fear. But this human stood before her and refused to play that game. "You say such things as if they are simple," Vera whispered. "They are simple," Marcus replied gently. "But simple does not mean easy." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed across the garden path. The queen appeared, her robes trailing like silver mist. Her guards remained at a distance, leaving her to walk alone. "Still no answer?" Queen Solara asked, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. Marcus bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I have not spoken because words are powerful. If spoken wrongly, they can wound more than weapons." The queen's violet eyes fixed on him. "Then speak rightly." Marcus drew a slow breath. He knew the moment had come. There would be no more time to delay. If he spoke now, the queen would judge him not only as a man but as a representative of all humanity. He raised his head, meeting her gaze directly. "I do not avoid your daughter out of fear or disrespect," he began. "I avoid her because I will not treat her as others do. For humans, affection is not a tool of politics. It is not a bargain or a crown to be won. It is something sacred. It is choice, and I cannot give it unless I mean it with all my heart." The words fell into the silence of the garden, heavy and unbroken. The queen did not move. The princess's eyes widened, her breath catching slightly. Marcus continued, his voice steady. "Where I come from, Your Majesty, love is not arranged. It is not commanded. It grows between two hearts freely without force. That is why I cannot pretend. To give your daughter words that are false would dishonor her. To pretend to feel something I do not would dishonor myself." The queen's expression remained unreadable, but the air itself seemed to grow still. At last she spoke softly, almost to herself. "Choice. A strange word. In matters of the heart." "It is the only word that matters," Marcus replied. For the first time since their first meeting, silence stretched between them, not from tension, but from thought. The queen studied him as if weighing his soul. Her daughter stood beside her, her expression caught between shock and wonder. At last, Vera whispered, "You mean you want me to be seen, not as a princess, but as myself?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, you are more than your crown, and you deserve someone who sees you, not your title." The words struck her deeper than she expected. For her whole life she had been admired, envied, and desired, but never for herself. Always for her position, her beauty, her power. No one had ever spoken of her as a person. The queen finally exhaled, her voice slow. "No one has ever spoken to me or to her in this way. Among my people, relationships are arranged to strengthen bloodlines, to secure power, to protect the empire. The heart is seldom asked to speak. And yet you claim the heart is all that matters." "Yes," Marcus said firmly, "because without the heart everything else is hollow." The queen's violet eyes softened for just a moment, though her face quickly returned to its calm mask. "You are bold, human. Bold enough to risk offense. Bold enough to risk much more, and yet, perhaps boldness is what we must learn from your kind." Vera turned to her mother, her voice trembling slightly. "He does not flatter me, mother. He speaks as if I were someone real." The queen glanced at her daughter, then at Marcus. "Perhaps that is what unsettles me. You are not like the others." She stepped closer, her presence filling the garden. "But bold words are easy. Can you prove they are not only words?" Marcus stood tall. "If a test is needed, I will face it." The queen studied him for a long moment, then gave a faint, knowing smile. "Very well, Captain. The test will come, And when it does, we will see if your honesty is truly a strength or a weakness." With that, she turned and walked away, her silver robes flowing behind her. Guards followed at a distance, leaving Marcus once more alone with the princess. Vera looked at him with wide, searching eyes. "You risked much by speaking to her that way." Marcus gave a small smile. "Truth is always a risk, but it is the only thing worth giving." For a long time, neither spoke. The fountain's gentle sound filled the silence, and the twin moons cast their quiet light across the garden. At last, Vera said softly, "Perhaps one day I will show you my heart." "Not my crown. Not my title. Just me." Marcus bowed respectfully, his expression calm yet kind. "When that day comes, I will listen." And with those words, the night carried a new weight. The queen had heard his answer. The princess had heard his truth. And the entire empire, though it did not yet know, was about to be shaken by the simple, powerful idea that one human dared to speak. That love, to be real, must be chosen. The following week brought tension that Marcus could feel in every step he took within the Zayari palace. Word of his honest words had spread among the nobles, and their reactions were mixed. Some admired his courage, while others whispered that he had insulted their traditions. In the palace corridors, glances followed him like shadows. Even simple greetings carried a weight that made his stomach tighten. Queen Solara, however, had remained calm. Her interest in Marcus seemed unshaken, though her silence was deliberate. She was a ruler who did not act in haste, and Marcus knew better than to underestimate her patience. One morning, Marcus was summoned to the throne room. The chamber was immense, with walls of polished crystal that reflected the sunlight streaming through massive windows. At the center, Queen Solara sat upon her throne, her silver robes flowing like liquid metal around her. Princess Vera stood nearby, her violet eyes fixed on Marcus with a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. "Captain Hale," the queen began, her voice calm and commanding, "your words have reached my ears, and I find them intriguing. You speak of the human heart and choice, yet words alone cannot prove the truth of such claims. Strength of character is revealed in action, not speech." Marcus bowed. "Your Majesty, I understand. If a test is required, I will face it." The queen's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained sharp. "Then I shall give you a task. A demonstration of human courage, ingenuity, and loyalty. You will accompany the Zayari fleet on a joint training exercise in the outer sectors. It is designed to simulate combat, but I assure you the dangers are very real. You will lead the rescue of stranded crews in conditions that will challenge every skill you possess. Succeed, and you will prove that your words are not empty. Fail." She paused, letting the weight of the sentence hang in the air. Marcus felt a chill, though he kept his face calm. "I will not fail, Your Majesty." The queen nodded. "Then prepare yourself. You leave at first light." That evening, Marcus reviewed the fleet's schematics and mission plans. The Zayari vessels were unlike anything humans had built. Sleek and fast, they seemed to glide rather than fly, their energy shields glowing softly against the blackness of space. Yet despite their elegance, Marcus found flaws that he knew a human perspective could improve. He spent hours analyzing strategies, studying escape routes, and imagining every possible complication. He was not simply preparing for a test of skill. He was preparing to show that humans could think beyond protocol, beyond routine, and act when circumstances demanded it. As the night deepened, Princess Vera appeared quietly at the door. "You work too hard," she said softly. Marcus glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. "Preparation is part of responsibility, Your Highness." Vera frowned. "You always speak so seriously. Do you not feel fear?" Marcus shook his head gently. "Fear is natural, but courage is acting despite fear. That is what humans learn in battle." For a moment she was silent, watching him with an intensity that made him slightly uncomfortable. Then she said softly, "Perhaps you are teaching me more than I expected." Marcus gave a small nod. "Perhaps we are teaching each other." At dawn, Marcus boarded the Zayari flagship, a vessel that glimmered in the early light. The crew greeted him with curiosity, some with respect, others with skepticism. He introduced himself calmly, showing no sign of intimidation, and outlined the mission. The simulation quickly turned into a real emergency. A minor miscalculation in the navigation system caused several Zayari craft to become trapped near a gravity well. The ships were powerless against the pull, and rescue operations were complicated by unstable energy readings. The fleet commanders turned to Marcus. "You lead the rescue," one officer said reluctantly. "The humans? Perhaps you have methods we do not understand." Marcus nodded. "We will save them. Stay close and follow orders." As the fleet moved, Marcus demonstrated strategy that combined human ingenuity with Zayari technology. He directed ships into precise positions, calculated safe trajectories through the gravity field, and coordinated crews on multiple vessels. The rescue required teamwork, courage, and split-second decisions. Hours passed and the danger grew. One ship's shields faltered, sending alarms echoing through the fleet. Another ship spun out of control, its crew trapped inside. Marcus acted quickly, giving commands with calm precision, and the humans and Zayari worked together to stabilize the situation. In the midst of the chaos, a Zayari officer whispered almost in awe, "He is not like the others. He thinks differently." Marcus did not answer. There was no time. Lives depended on every decision he made. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last stranded crew was rescued. The ships emerged from the gravity well battered but intact. The Zayari fleet commanders who had doubted Marcus now looked at him with respect. The princess, watching from the flagship's observation deck, seemed almost speechless. When they returned to the palace, Queen Solara awaited them. She observed Marcus carefully as he stepped forward to report the mission. "You faced danger," she said quietly. "And you succeeded," Marcus bowed. "Your Majesty, it was not victory alone that mattered. It was ensuring everyone returned safely. That is all any human can promise." The Queen studied him, her expression unreadable at first. Then slowly she nodded. "Perhaps humans are more than the unshaped. Perhaps they are different." Princess Vera stepped forward, her eyes bright with admiration. "You were incredible," she said simply. I have never seen anyone act with such courage and care at the same time." Marcus gave a small, respectful bow. It was teamwork. Humans cannot act alone, and neither can the Zayari. We succeed together. Vera seemed to hesitate, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is why you avoided me. You are not afraid to act according to your own rules." Marcus's lips curved into a quiet smile. "Yes, and because I respect the heart, not the crown." The Queen, watching her daughter, finally spoke, her voice softer than it had ever been with Marcus. "Your words were not empty. Your actions have proven them true. And for that, Captain Hale, you have earned the respect of this court." The nobles who had doubted him were silent, their faces betraying surprise. A human by courage, intelligence, and integrity had surpassed centuries of tradition. For the first time, some of them questioned whether rigid rules had always served the empire best. Vera looked at Marcus once more, a new understanding in her eyes. "Perhaps one day," she said quietly, "I will see you not just as a human, but as someone worthy of trust." Marcus bowed, his heart steady. "That day will come, Your Highness, if it is meant to be." And as the twin moons rose in the night sky, casting silver light over the palace, Marcus knew one thing. Humanity had earned more than respect that day. They had earned a place among the stars, not through weapons or power, but through courage, honesty, and heart. The Queen, who had once doubted the strength of humans, now considered them not as fragile or unshaped, but as beings capable of principle, bravery, and integrity, and that realization, Marcus knew, would shape the alliance for generations to come. The palace had never felt so quiet. The Zayari court buzzed with anticipation, yet even the whispers seemed hushed under the weight of expectation. Word of Captain Marcus Hale's actions during the fleet rescue had spread like wildfire, reaching every noble and ambassador within the empire. Marcus himself remained calm, though the weight of the moment pressed on him. He knew the Queen had summoned him for the final discussion, the one that could define humanity's place in the Zayari Empire forever. When Marcus entered the throne room, the atmosphere was heavy with formality. Queen Solara sat upon her throne, her silver robes flowing like a river of light, while Princess Vera stood at her side. The nobles bowed deeply, yet all eyes were fixed on him. He took a careful step forward, keeping his expression respectful. "Captain Hale," the Queen began, her voice calm but strong, "you have acted with courage, honesty, and wisdom. You have faced dangers that would have tested the finest warriors of our empire, and yet there remains a question unanswered." Marcus inclined his head. "Your Majesty?" The Queen's violet eyes pierced his as if searching his very soul. "Why do you avoid my daughter? Marcus had expected this question, but the gravity of the moment made his heart quicken. The answer he would give now could shape not only his own future, but the future of the alliance between humans and Zayari. He drew a steadying breath and spoke with clarity. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice calm and steady, "I avoid your daughter not out of disrespect, fear, or pride. I avoid her because she deserves someone who sees her heart, not her crown. Someone who will value her for who she truly is, not for her position or title. Until I know her heart, I cannot pretend, and I will not pretend." For a long moment the throne room was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The Queen's expression remained calm, but her eyes widened slightly, an expression Marcus had never seen on her before. Princess Vera's lips parted in surprise, and for a brief moment she seemed almost unsure how to respond. The Queen finally spoke, her voice quiet, almost lost in thought. "No one has ever spoken to me or to her with such honesty. Among the Zayari, hearts are often hidden behind titles, behind duty, behind expectation. You, human, have dared to speak plainly, and for that I am speechless." The words hung in the air, carrying a weight that was almost tangible. The nobles murmured among themselves, some in admiration, some in confusion. To hear a human stand before the Queen and speak of heart and choice as matters more important than power was unheard of in the Zayari Empire. Princess Vera stepped forward, her eyes shining with a mix of curiosity and admiration. You mean what you say? Not for politics, not for favor. You speak truthfully." Marcus bowed slightly, his expression calm but sincere. "Yes, Your Highness. Truth is all I can offer, and I cannot offer less than that." Vera studied him, her gaze thoughtful. "I have never met anyone like you. You do not flatter, you do not play games, and yet you care. You care more than anyone I have known." Marcus's lips curved into a small smile. "That is how humans choose to act. We value honesty and courage above empty words. And when we give our hearts, it is freely, without expectation." The Queen leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "You speak of the human heart as if it carries power greater than the strength of fleets or the strategy of empires. Tell me, Captain Hale, what is it that humans possess that makes you so confident in this approach?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Humans are not always the strongest or the fastest. We are not perfect, nor are we always wise, but we have the ability to choose, to act with integrity, to protect others even when it is difficult, and to value what truly matters. That is our strength. Not weapons, not titles, not crowns." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, but this time in thought rather than command. For centuries, she had ruled with precision, valuing strategy, strength, and cunning above all else. To hear that choice, integrity, and courage could hold more power than all of that was both alien and intriguing. "You have risked your life for our people, Captain," she said finally, "and you have spoken truthfully, even when the consequences could have been grave. Your actions prove what your words claim. Perhaps humans are not as fragile as we believed." The nobles shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some whispered that a single human had dared to challenge centuries of tradition and had done so successfully. Others stared at Marcus with open admiration. Princess Vera's voice was soft but full of emotion. "Perhaps I have underestimated humans. Perhaps I have underestimated you." Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "You should never underestimate anyone, Your Highness. True strength is often found where it is least expected." The Queen's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "You have not only proven yourself, Captain Hale, but you have also reminded us that courage and honesty are not bound by species or tradition. For that you have earned my respect." The room was silent, but Marcus felt a quiet shift in the air. Where there had been tension and suspicion, there was now recognition and understanding. The human spirit in its honesty and bravery had made its mark. Princess Vera approached Marcus slowly, her eyes softening. "I want to know you," she said quietly. "Not as a captain, not as a diplomat, not as a human in an empire that is not yours. I want to know you, as yourself." Marcus bowed slightly, his heart steady. "And when you do, I will listen. Truly listen." The Queen observed them carefully, her expression thoughtful. For the first time in centuries, she allowed herself a small smile. The human before her had not only survived the trials of diplomacy and danger, but had done so with a strength of heart that few in her empire could match. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "humans have more to teach us than we imagined." The princess's eyes met her mother's, and in that shared glance there was understanding. The old ways, the rigid traditions were not always the only path. A human had shown that courage, honesty, and integrity could reshape even centuries of expectation. Marcus felt a quiet pride, though he remained humble. He had not sought praise or recognition. He had acted as any human would, with honesty and courage, guided by principle rather than ambition. And yet in doing so, he had achieved something far greater than personal success. He had opened a door to understanding between two very different worlds. The Queen's voice broke the silence once more. "Captain Hale, you are free to go. But know this, your actions have changed this court. Your words have changed my daughter. And perhaps they have changed me as well." Marcus bowed deeply. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It is an honor to serve not just humanity, but the alliance we share with the Zayari Empire." Princess Vera took a small step closer. "Perhaps, one day, Captain, we will see if your heart is as true in times of peace as it is in times of danger." Marcus nodded. "I believe it will be, Your Highness. That is the way of humans." The twin moons cast silver light across the palace, illuminating the faces of those who had witnessed this extraordinary moment. In that quiet, shining moment, the power of honesty, courage, and integrity was clearer than any weapon, brighter than any crown. Humans had proven themselves, not through dominance but through heart. Queen Solara remained silent for a moment, then finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "The court is dismissed. Let all remember this day, when a human taught us the value of the heart above all else." The nobles rose slowly, bowing deeply, their expressions filled with awe and newfound respect. The princess lingered, her gaze following Marcus as he left the throne room, a small smile on her lips. And as he walked through the palace halls, Marcus knew that humanity had gained something far more valuable than recognition. They had earned trust, respect, and the knowledge that the human heart could change even the oldest of empires. The queen remained seated, silent, watching him go. For the first time in centuries, she was truly speechless, not from shock, not from fear, but from the quiet, undeniable power of honesty, courage, and the choice to act with integrity. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that this human, and the principles he represented, would shape the future of the Zayari Empire for generations to come.